My name's Bill Hewitt. Welcome to National Military Park here at Gettysburg. Let me see a show of hands, first time visitor. First time, second, third, fifth, 10th, 20th. Okay, we're good. Got a little bit of everything. That's good. Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the McPherson farm area and what it was like before the battle, and then what it was like during the battle, and then what it was like right after the battle, okay? If you have any questions, ask them as we go. A couple of things, don't have to worry too much about sun today, but we do have a tick problem this year, so you want to check yourself, especially if you're new. You're looking for the small ticks, deer ticks, okay? They got the Lyme disease, okay? Okay, McPherson Farm. The original owner was a guy named McGonaghy, and he's going to, from him is going to go to the McPherson family. Now, McPherson's were well known. He was a colonel in the Revolutionary War. He's going to turn the farm over to his son Edward a couple years before the Civil War breaks out. Now, Edward is a clerk for the U.S. Congress down in Washington, so he's going to be kind of an absent owner, if you will. And the family will be the farm will be rented, and I'll show you some pictures of the farm right after the battle. What you see now is just the barn. At the time of the battle, there'll be about 6 buildings total, a couple of, the main building and a couple of outbuildings and such, but we restored the barn the way it is. Now, a couple of interesting things about this farm here. One, it was self-sufficient, self-sustaining. It'll have crops for eating and crops for feeding the cattle and feeding the horses and chickens and things like that. But around here, the soil is not, if you notice these stone walls all over the place, we don't have to go to Home Depot to buy them. They're all here. The ground is really pretty bad in most places. To have a self-sustaining farm is pretty unique for this area. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. About 130 acres, so it'll go to the other side of the lot over here, the tree lot. And now, I was telling folks just before, a tree farm, if you will, is different than a forest, what you see nowadays. Back then, look at a tree farm as the next generation of fence rails and boards. So if a tree, the trunk is split or irregular, that'll come down. They'll use that for firewood. If you can reach branches, you'll take the branches for firewood again, but you're trying to retain that trunk again for the rails and the boards, okay? Now what you have then is because what they do is they let their cattle graze inside the forested areas so that they're not in the crop areas, and they'll put fences up to segregate forest areas from so there's no underbrush here. Beautiful canopy in this woodlot, no underbrush. That'll be important during the battle.
What sort of trees are they?
Pardon?
What sort of trees are they? What type of wood?
Oh, a lot of what you see here will be white oak. We have very few pine trees around here. They'll get those up in the mountains. We do have some cedar, but they'll take those out. They're too prolific. You have to kill them. You have to get rid of them. So, okay. Now, about 130 acres starts out. The original driveway, if you will, came right from this direction, straight over toward the barn. And so you're going to get to the house before you get to the barn. Cashtown Road, right over here, was not here at the time. US 30 wasn't here. And so later on, they're going to put Cashtown Road in over here. That's going to split the property in half. He's going to lose about 20 acres or so because it'll be on the other side of the road. But more importantly is that now, if you're coming in on the main road, you're going to have to go past the barn to get to the house. Not really that appetizing back then. And so McPherson's going to take him to court, and he's going to win, but we don't know how much money he wins. We can't never find out. He wins the court case about destroying the value of the property, but we don't know how much money he gets, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the property coming into the battle. The night before the battle, the 30th of June, General Buford, cavalry commander, is going to come into town. He's got about 3,000 cavalrymen with him. And they're going to set up in a huge arc. They called it a vedette line. It starts over in this direction, miles away, 6-7 miles from here, and goes all the way around to the north. Over the course of the afternoon of the 30th, Buford's men are going to scout out the enemy. They're going to know very well where the Confederates are. They know that General Ewell is coming in from the north. They know that A.P. Hill is coming in from the west. And they're pretty well certain that Longstreet's corps, 1st Corps, is further behind. Buford is going to transmit this information back to the wing commander, which is John Fulton Reynolds, and the Army commander, George Meade. So the Federals have a pretty good understanding about where the Confederates are. Not so for the Confederates. General Lee, Commander Army of Northern Virginia, is moving a little bit blind. He has not had his cavalry corps with him for about 7 days now. Jeb Stuart got delayed down in Virginia and then passed the army behind the Federal Army and went up toward Carlisle and now is coming back. He's not going to get here till tomorrow, the 2nd of July. So General Lee is moving blind. He even writes in his report, I was moving with a view toward the comfort of the soldiers. He was unaware of how close the Federals were. So Buford comes into town. He's going to bump into a Confederate brigade of infantry, and under the instructions they're not to bring on a fight, those Confederates are going to back up. They're going to go back to Marsh Creek, about 5 miles from here. That's where they'll encamp during the night. By nightfall, 6 p.m. or so, on the 30th, Buford's going to get a visitor from headquarters. His name is Colonel Joe Dickinson. Now, if you've been here before, you might have heard of Joe Dickinson. He's going to come, sit with General Buford for about 4 hours at Eagle Hotel, going to find out where all the Confederates are. He's going to go back and leave here about 10 o'clock in the evening, 10 p.m. General Meade's in Taneytown, 14 miles from here, maybe 15. It's going to take about 2 hours to ride that distance in the dark. Now the next thing we know, that's going to get him into Taneytown after midnight. The next thing we know, in about 3 hours or so, maybe 4, General Reynolds, he's south of here on the Emmitsburg Road, about 6 or 7 miles. He's going to get awoken by a courier. We don't know if he was tired, but he keeps asking the courier to reread the message. Reread the message 3-4 times. He gets his men up, his staff, he prepares a very quick breakfast, and he gets his men on the road. Now the message is, move to Gettysburg. This is a change from the day before. General Meade had been interested in going to Hanover and Hanover Junction. Now if you're a visitor here, Hanover is in that direction, about 12 or 15 miles. Hanover Junction's a small town, doesn't even exist anymore, but it's about another 7 miles further on. So from his current location, General Meade was going to go to the north and east on the 1st of July, and he informs Washington of that intent. But now you see he's going to be moving north on the 1st. Orders are to come to Gettysburg. He's also in that same order going to dispatch a federal corps of about 10 or 12,000 men. You know, Gettysburg's that hub, that road hub, and each one of them spokes is going to get a Union federal corps on it, so he can concentrate here if he wants or pull back. Okay? So, come to Gettysburg. Reynolds gets his men up early. They start moving quickly. They've got about 7 miles to cover. Reynolds is going to ride ahead. He's going to arrive somewhere around 9 o'clock. By now the battle is starting to rage down in this direction, about a mile from here. He's going to meet Buford over here in the cupola, over here at the seminary. He's going to ask Buford for a situation report. What's going on? Buford will inform him. Reynolds is going to go back to his unit now on the Emmitsburg Road and marching in this direction. He, and along with his staff, as they move, are going to be tearing up fences, creating a corridor for his men to run in, to get to here. He'll intercept his line of troops down on the Emmitsburg Road, very close to the Kadori farm. And from there, the men are now not going to go along the roads into Gettysburg and then back out one of the spokes. Now they're going to go across the country. The men will be about 83 degrees that day. Of course, they're wearing their wool uniforms. They said back then you could smell an army before you could see them. The men will start to break into a trot and then break into a run to get here in time. The Federal cavalry have now pulled back and are now going to turn the battle over to the Federal infantry. Up till now, the Confederates had been skirmishing with cavalry, but the infantry is going to arrive just in time. The first units here will fall in on both sides of the road here and defend against the Confederates. The next units up are very distinctive, wear very distinctive headgear. They're called the Iron Brigade. Now what Reynolds is going to do is leave these men here on this side of the tree farm, and he's going to put the Iron Brigade in over here on the other side of the tree farm for the most part. The Confederates are already now in the woods. They're already starting to outflank the initial unit. So what I'd like to do is move from here. We're going to just go down to the corner and give you an idea about the battle as it unfolds, okay? Here's a picture of General Reynolds. Very well respected. Some people say he was offered the job Commander Army of the Potomac before General Meade was. General Meade and he have fought alongside each other since Mexico. Meade calls him his brother. But more importantly, he is a very skilled commander. The Confederate commander in the immediate area, a guy by the name of Harry Heath. He's a division commander. He's got about 8,000 troops under his command. Okay? Now Reynolds had decided to fight here on the high ground west of town. When he first got into town, even before he met Buford, he's going to lay his map out on the ground down by the peach orchard. They said it was a big map, and he's laying on the ground on his knees. And he's talking to himself. And there's an artillery captain that writes about this. And Reynolds is talking to himself, asking questions. And the artillery captain does not know whether or not he's supposed to answer the questions or that sounds good or whatever, right? So he looks at some of the commanders, some of Reynolds' subordinate commanders that know him well. And he has this look on his face. And they go, just the way he is, don't worry about it. And Reynolds is already talking to himself about what he's going to do for this battle. If I defend in town, there'll be shelling in the town, there'll be civilian casualties. But if I can get to the heights beyond the town and go to battle there, the town will be spared. And so he said, okay, that's what we're doing. He boxes up his map. He'll tell one of his aide-de-camps, one of his young officers, Rosengarten, go back to tell General Meade, I'll fight them in the streets and barricade the streets of the town if necessary. But I'm going to get to the heights beyond the town. And so with that decision, he now rides forward, he talks to Buford, he goes back, and now he's hurrying his men forward. The 1st Brigade goes in here, about 1,000 men. He tells the lead division commander, he says, I'll take care of this road here, this spoke to the wheel. You go down and control that one to the south. And so the division commander is down there, half a mile away. So who's going to emplace the troops here? Reynolds himself. And so now we have the Iron Brigade coming across the fields, running. They stop down in the low ground. Colonel Morrow, he's the regimental commander of the 24th Michigan. He stops to load his weapons. A staff officer comes up and says, "There's not enough time." And so he moves his men out with unloaded muskets. The Iron Brigade's going to hit right here and hit into the flank of the boys from Tennessee and Alabama. It's going to surprise them. But they also hit with a lot of force. And they're going to chase the Confederates back down the hill, across Willoughby Run, and back up to the next hill. The Confederates are stunned. They've also lost one of their generals being captured. Now they hear the Confederates shouting at their chain of command. It's those damn fellas in the black hats. At least 3 people write about it. No longer cavalry. They wore very distinctive hats, a lot like what I'm wearing now, except one side will be pushed up, it'll be black, and it'll have a badge on it. It's not militia. It's the Army of the Potomac. Now the Confederates are going to have to adjust. The Iron Brigade has done its job. Reynolds himself is going to be killed during this time frame. His monument over there is where that knoll is. That's about the location that he is shot. His aides carry him to the rear. Now General Meade, it'll be a couple hours before he hears about it. He's going to hear about it about 1 o'clock. But he's already heard the Confederates have been pushed back. And so now more and more the Federal units are going to be allowed to come and fight the battle here at Gettysburg. Okay? So we got this part of the line stable. And we got that part of the line stable for now. What have the Confederates been doing? Well, they put in 1 brigade and it got repulsed. 1,500 men over there on Hare Ridge. Now they put in 2 brigades, guys from Tennessee and Mississippi, and they got repulsed. So if you're a division commander, 1 brigade's been repulsed, 2 brigades have been repulsed. Now what are you going to do? Oh, no. All 4.
All 4.
All 4. And so on the 1st of July, now we're going to have a long lull, because it's going to take time for those other 2 brigades to get on the line. And that's okay. That's what the Federals have been doing all morning, buying time. They're buying time for other units to arrive. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to go from here a little bit beyond where we started. And we'll talk a little bit more about the battle down at that end of the line. Okay? On the way down, we had a question about cannon. There were some batteries here early on, a couple of batteries. What Reynolds is going to do with his artillery is the same thing he does with his infantry. Normally during that time, you know, if a brigade goes into battle, you don't have much of a space before the next brigade goes in right next to it. But what Reynolds is going to do is spread his brigades out so that they make it look like he's got more troops than what he has. Same thing with the artillery. He's going to have a couple of guns over here on this side of the woods and a couple guns on the other side of the woods. Make it look like he's got more cannon than what he really has originally. What's going to happen though, of course, is when you have separation between your units. I'm a division commander. I got 1 brigade over here. I got another brigade over there. I got another division's troops in between. It's going to disrupt the chain of command. And so they needed to repair that, but they didn't do that. Okay? Let's reinforce something here. And that is that General Lee did not expect a battle today, the 1st of July. He thought the Federal Army was south of here, somewhere around 8 to 10 miles. He had scouts, although he did not have his cavalry, he had scouts, and those scouts were reporting that the Federal Army was at Middleburg. That's down in Maryland. So for example here, over here, in one of the units that's getting ready to attack, Pettigrew's brigade has got a regiment of over 880 men. They're huge, twice the size of anything else. Remember how they raised regiments back then? A county gets tasked to raise a regiment. Or if you're in a big town, Philadelphia or Raleigh, maybe even a neighborhood, an ethnic neighborhood, might have enough interest to raise a regiment with Irishmen in it, or Dutch, or something else. And so a lot of people know each other in that regiment. Their neighbors, their fathers and sons. And so I'm looking at the 26th North Carolina. In one company, had 16 members of the same family. And 4 members of another family. And so think about the devastation that's going to be in that county when this battle's over. 24th Michigan, the unit we just talked about, rushes into battle without loaded muskets. Remember him? Colonel Morrow's crowd? They had so many sets of brothers in that regiment. They called them a regiment of brothers. 135 brothers in that regiment.
That's a lot.
And that doesn't include in-laws. And so, again, think about the devastation that's getting ready to happen near Detroit. Okay? Okay, so artillery's set up, split battery, trying to present a big front. Confederates are now rushing more and more people in. That group we just talked about, General Pettigrew's brigade, is going to be coming in with the 26th North Carolina. Now you remember I was talking to you about the treed lot, and I said to you it's clear at the bottom, but it's got that nice canopy on top. Well, when Pettigrew's brigade attacks, it's going to have to push the Iron Brigade back across Willoughby Run, and then back into the forest, into this treed lot. Back then they had black powder. Sometimes you couldn't even see the enemy, so much smoke was in front of you. But today that canopy we just talked about is going to retain the smoke in there. So quite literally the two sides are going to be 20 paces apart, 40 feet. And they're not going to see each other until they get that close. And so they're going to get that close and they're just going to keep shooting at each other and shooting at each other. The 26th North Carolina is going to have over a dozen flag bearers go down. Now think about this. I'm carrying the flag. Where that flag goes, my unit goes. It's a great honor, but it gets a lot of attention. And so the guy with the flag is going to get shot, and his replacement is going to get shot, and his replacement, and his replacement. And inevitably, King Burgoyne, the regimental commander of those 880 men, he's going to pick it up.
And get shot.
And he's going to get shot. And his second in command, Lieutenant Colonel Lane, is going to be next. And he'll pick it up. And he'll get shot. And so it'll keep going. How's it going to end? Now, inevitably, the Confederates are going to have a bigger number here. And while the battle north of town, if you look up over here, you're going to see Oak Hill. That's on the other side of this road, probably about 3/4 of a mile or so, a half a mile. The peace light's up there. General Lee is going to show up, and Henry Heath's division is ready to attack. Now Lee's already nervous. Now he knows the Federal infantry are here. So because the rest of his army is not here yet, he's going to hold off and not allow Henry Heath to attack. But about 12 o'clock, 12:30, Confederates are going to start showing up on that hill up there. That'll be Ewell's 2nd Corps, Army Northern Virginia. And so now General Lee will allow the attack to proceed. So the battle is going to rage on the other side of the road just as hard as it's going to rage here. This battle will go on till about 3:30, maybe even past. this whole unit, this whole corps here, 1st Corps, in about 2 weeks is going to be disbanded. It'll cease to exist. Big regiments will be shifted to other corps to fill them out. But the flag will be furled, covered up. 1st Corps will no longer exist because of the damage here. The men will lament. They say, if John Reynolds had been alive, this wouldn't have happened. He was so well respected. But the Federal Army had also done something they hadn't done in a long time. What would that be? Fight hard. Fight hard. And while they might be backing up today, they fought hard. Pardon?
They bought time.
And they bought time. Abner Doubleday, you guys know him, he didn't start baseball, but everybody gets credit.
He has a feel for it.
Yeah, he had a feel for it. You know, go out and play baseball, guys. Waste some time. Abner Doubleday will take over when Reynolds gets hurt. And they'll ask him afterward, they'll say, how come you fought so hard on the 1st? I mean, you devastated your corps. How come you fought so hard? You know what his response is? John Reynolds picked this ground and we thought we ought not to give it up so easy. That's the respect that the men had for John Reynolds. And so the devastation in this area is enormous. Now, let me draw your attention back over to the McPherson barn. Inevitably, the Confederates are going to rush over this area, and I'm going to give you a quote. And the battle is going to rage over on Seminary Ridge and then beyond. The Union Army will fall back to Cemetery Hill. They'll end up the 1st of July up on Cemetery Hill. Units over here of the 11th Corps are going to defend north of town. They're going to have to also fall back at about the same time, 3:30 or 4 o'clock. Think on it though. If I'm a Union hospital and my men are fighting right here, where is my hospital?
Close.
In the seminary.
To the rear, to the seminary and even further back. If I'm a Confederate division commander and my unit is fighting down over here, where's my hospital?
In the farm.
Further back, to the rear. Thousands of men are going to be casualties in this field. They are hoping that that is a hospital. And they'll start crawling to it. Okay? Let me get you a couple of quotes here from the men. As soon as our troops had retired, this is a Pennsylvania regiment, Union regiment. As soon as our troops had retired, the enemy came over that part of the field, marching in line of battle, until regiment after regiment had passed on toward Gettysburg town and beyond it where the fighting was still going on. As each line of battle came to where I was, the captains ordered their men to open ranks so as not to injure me as they passed over. After the infantry came the artillery at full gallop on the turnpike. I saw there was a danger of them getting off the road into the low part where I was. Also, I saw Southern Army stragglers going over the field robbing the wounded, so I made up my mind. I would try crawling about 125 yards to McPherson barn, a safer place. It was slow and tedious work, as I was loaded down with my sword, revolver, rubber blanket, canteen, tin cup, little sugar and tea, and a few broken up pieces of hard bread. That's not a hospital. It's in between. And so hundreds of men are going to try to make their way to that barn. They're not going to make, some of them are going to die hanging onto the fence, and that's where they'll be in horrific condition. Some men will get to the barn waiting for doctors. Confederate doctors are going to show up on the 4th of July. This is 3 days after the battle. They know their army is moving that next day. So they're going to do as many of the surgeries as they can. but there's still 200 men that will require surgeries when those doctors leave. The federal doctors are not going to show up until the 6th of July, 5 days later. You can well imagine the condition of the wounded men. The heat was intense and the men had received no treatment for several days. The odor from their wounds was repulsive. One after another was placed on a scaffold, put under the influence of chloroform, and while the surgeon dexterously performed the operation, I would hold the limb until it was separated from the body. During this time, I suffered no nausea from the offensive smell or ghastly sight of bloody limbs that lay at my side. In due time, the ambulances came and all the wounded men were removed to the hospital in town. While mingling among the men at the stone barn, I entered a gangway between the stables and found my way to the rear. A number of men were just lying there in the dark. By the time the federal troops show up here, the surgeons, on the 6th, all around the barn are just nothing but graves. The renter of the property is a guy named John Slens. His family had taken off before the battle. And he's going to see Buford's men ride in, and he's going to see his fences being torn down for firewood. Probably his chickens are being confiscated for dinner, and a couple other things. So he's going to take off on the night of the 30th. He's going to come back in a few days. He's the first one to arrive. He's going to come back to his farm and see what has happened. His wife has a quilt. Must have been a nice quilt. He's looking at his farm. The cows are gone, the chickens are gone, the fences are gone, the crop's been destroyed. But if I can find that quilt, I'll be able to tell my wife there's something left. It must have been that kind of quilt. So now he rushes into the house to find that quilt. He can't find it anywhere. He goes into the barn. Maybe it's in there. In the barn it is. But the quilt is wrapped around the body of a Confederate officer, and it's not going to be usable. So now he's overwhelmed, because now he's got to tell his wife there's nothing left. She'll come back, they'll rebuild, and rebuild again and again, and the farm will again become prosperous. Now in 1895, very critical year, same year we become a park. 1895, they've now added onto the house. It's a nice house, 2 stories. It's a major renovation. They're getting ready to move in the next day after this major renovation. There's a fire that night, destroys the whole house.
Wow.
Now you're the renter. You know, Edward's still down in D.C. We don't know what happens to the Slens family, but that's enough. That's enough. They've done this enough. So they're going to take off. What I'd like to do is show you a picture of the farm. And actually, this is right after the battle. And actually, you look and you say, that doesn't look too bad. There's no wanton destruction. And here's the farm in the 1880. And you can see the second story is now added onto the house. Yeah? So, this farm here has seen a lot. Over time, that barn, they had added on to it. And after 2 restorations, by the late 1990s now, they're going to restore it to the way it was at the time of the battle. Complete renovation. And it is as you see it today, which it was at the time of the battle. Okay? They're going to find there, not just stuff from the Civil War, bayonets, you'd expect, cannonballs, right? They're going to find stuff from the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
They're going to find Native American artifacts. You remember I told you this was good ground? Native Americans knew good ground when they saw it too. Let's talk a little bit about the 1st of July here, just to kind of close. One is the Federal Army had a very good idea about where the Confederates were and had prepared for a possible battle here. The Confederates were moving blind, and they thought they had additional time. They thought they had time to concentrate their army and then proceed to a battle. The second thing is the slugfest that's going to occur on this ground on the 1st of July. Take the 26 North Carolina, the Coffee family, 16 of them. 6 of them were going to be either killed outright or wounded and die very quickly because of their wounds. And I can't track all of them yet. I'm still doing my research on that. So it might be even more devastating than just 6. On the 24th Michigan side, we're going to have the Martin family. 5 guys. 4 are either killed or wounded here and die very quickly. And so you have these 2 counties, one near Detroit and one down in North Carolina called Caldwell County. And after this battle and after the 1st of July, they're going to get the news about what happens to their families. That's a microcosm of what happens at Gettysburg. It's a microcosm of what happens in that hospital. Do you have any questions on the 1st of July at all? Nothing.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Who flanked Howard?
Pardon?
How did Howard get flanked?
His rightmost division over there is a fellow by the name of Barlow. Barlow had been instructed to place his brigades in echelon. And what he does is he puts one brigade right behind the other. And so he's very easily outflanked. The Confederates are going to attack and fix him, fix his units where they're at, and because now his unit cannot move because they're in combat, then he's going to rush the other past the flank. That'll be Juba Early's division. And so on the 1st of July, if you're a 1st Corps fan or you fought here, who are you going to blame for having to fall back? You're going to blame 11th Corps. And if you're an 11th Corps fan, or if you were here as an 11th Corps member, who are you going to blame for falling back? You're going to blame 1st Corps. Okay? So that's how that's going to go.
You could see Cemetery Hill from here at the time, couldn't
You can see the peach orchard from here because we know Reynolds could point to it and say, I'm going to fight him on the high ground west of town.
you? So you mean over this direction?
Yeah, the seminary was only 3 buildings at the time. And so you might have been able to see Cemetery Hill from here.
I was just going by the picture of the 3 Confederate
Prisoners? Yeah.
that they had taken, and the
Yeah.
tree in the background being on Cemetery. But a lot of it, the pictures taken from Cemetery Hill, it's like you can see.
Well, you can see Cemetery Hill easily from Seminary Ridge right here. I don't know if you can see it from here though.
Okay.
Okay? As I look at that, that looks to be a few feet taller. I just don't know.
Just one reduce.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions at all? Folks, we do these programs all day long. We do 22 of them. Start early in the morning, go to the campfire 8:30 at night, down at the amphitheater, unless it rains.
Yeah.
We were out there last night, and I'm sitting here looking at this storm, and I'm going, yep. And the lightning was 7 miles away, then 5 miles away, and then 3 miles. I'm going, okay, we're done. And I almost made it to the car. If I had another 15 seconds. But we do the campfires too, up 8:30 at the amphitheater if you're looking for something to do after dinner.
he was kind enough to give me a private recap of what the thing was this morning.
Yeah.
Anybody that stands out in the rain for 30 minutes deserves something. Okay, any other questions at all? Okay, folks, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.